All right, we are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's a little bit different today. Actually, this is a new year for us. It feels a little bit weird because I haven't done a Facebook Live or a podcast since December, but I'm back for the new year. This is my kickoff podcast. We did have this scheduled with Marianne Day of TuscanHound earlier, but I ran into some technical difficulties, so forgive me. But let me back up, folks. I'm Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm a veterinarian, and I work in the airline industry. Been doing so with Delta Airlines since 2018 timeframe, brought on staff to help review and revise the policies of animal transportation. And within that role, I started noticing some things that pet owners could potentially do to better prepare their pets for air travel. So I developed my own platform to share that information, and that my platform is When Pets Fly. So I've been doing that now a good 5 years. Got a Facebook group, Instagram, LinkedIn. I have a website, www.winpets.com, if you want to check out the information I've shared there. Now, we've been doing these episodes, these podcasts, for some time, at least 4 years now, to, in a sense, share information, what I always say, with the different stakeholders in the animal transportation industry. We have a various amount of different people we have discussions with, and it's really valuable because we share an insight that probably is not seen elsewhere. So today is no different. I'm very excited to have Marianne Day from TuscanHound Air with us, and she's going to share information about a luxury service for pet travel. So without further ado, Marianne, if you don't mind, introduce yourself and we'll jump on into the conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. We're very excited to be here. When I say we, I mean me and all the dogs. And all of us know who are surrounded by animals most of the time.
Mine is sitting right behind me too, yes.
Oh, that is the we when we say we. So we love talking about anybody who is traveling with a pet, getting questions answered. We get excited about that and love providing correct and accurate information in a fun way that gets pets from one place to the other, where we don't have to leave them at home when we want to take them with us. And one of the reasons that we started TuscanHound Air was because we opened TuscanHound Florence in 2009, and that is our brick and mortar service that we have in Florence, Italy, right at the foot of the Ponte Vecchio, and that is an animal care service. And we do dog walks and kitty cat checks, and we even took a little hamster for a surgery recently that had a little stethoscope on his chest, and that was great. We love that. And so since starting business in 2009, we had so many clients that were saying, how do we travel with our pets? How do we get to the UK from Italy? I brought my pet over in cargo, and that wasn't the best option for me. Do you know of another option? And so we started very early with this service, and then we branched off just 1 year ago and started TuscanHound Air, which is a luxury pet air travel company. So when I say luxury, that means not luxury in pricing, but luxury in service. So anyone who does the same service, for example, we are below their pricing, but we just make it the most incredible and lovely experience for pets. And because we have been in the pet industry for 20 years plus, it really is just all about the pets. They get doggy menus. We even have like freeze-dried whole chicken breasts that we use hot teapot water to pour over so they can be served, and the chicken can come, can be ready to eat. And it's amazing. We're so happy to have had a chance to get that going and really serve our client base, who are just either they just want their pet to have the best service and the same service that they do. And so that's what we're doing. And that's mostly good. New York to Europe, but we're expanding this year.
Well, in a sense though, so your service is more, you thinking again, is luxury is more just saying pets first, pet centric is your idea behind that, correct?
Absolutely. Pets first. So we really, because again, we're an animal-based company who got into aviation based on the request from our clients who have animals within this service in Florence. So we went into it with an animal first approach, from everything from we know that maybe your dog has had surgery on its knee 2 years ago. So we look at that even when boarding. We say, okay, little Fluffy had this surgery on his knee, so we're going to make sure he can sit in the front. He has, a very comfortable space. And then maybe someone has a German Shepherd who's terrified of Pomeranians. We don't know why, but maybe it is. So we put them in the back. We know all of their history. We talk to the parents, in person. I have many conversations with clients directly by phone before their trips. So we get to know people and their pets personally before they fly. It's really, really personalized and special.
So how far in advance, say if I wanted to travel, how far in advance would I have to contact you to start making these arrangements?
Well, it really depends on where you're going. We always want to encourage people to book as soon as they can. However, we understand that people have last minute travel and maybe they had something that fell through with their pet. And the last thing we want to do is say, oh, we can't, I'm sorry, we can't accommodate you. And now your pet has to stay at home or you have to make other arrangements. So safely, if you're traveling from the United States to Europe, we would say start that about 3 to 2 months prior to your travel. The earlier you start, the better it's going to be, because you can kind of get that out of your way in your mind and continue with your own travel plans and just get that sorted for you and your pet. Again, everything is kind of variable. Depends on your pet. Do you have an elderly pet? Does your pet need a special health clearance? Maybe they have a heart issue. If they don't, then you can, if they don't need that type of clearance or any special type of care aside from our normal special care, then you can probably, I would say 2 weeks is like a last minute. Depends on how you're traveling and where you're traveling from, as you know, and what documentation you may need. But we customize everything and we will always do everything we can to help you get on that plane.
That's good. And just make sure I'm clear, because I know there's some of the jet service providers for pet travel they are private jet companies or they charter service. What do you do as far as the servicing with TuscanHound?
So we charter jets and we have relationships directly with the operators. So we operate under what is called a Part 380 with the Department of Transportation. And that means that we are allowed to communicate directly with the operators who manage the planes. So we don't go through brokers or any third party. We deal directly with the operators. And we know those operators based even on our experience with who are clients of ours, because we've been around for so long. We know a lot of people who are in aviation and who own their own planes and who may just be managing the FBO who looks after the planes, et cetera. So we're very close with the operators that we have, but we are a air charter operator, which means we do not own our own planes. We lease the planes, and we keep track of what's going on with those planes as well. And we have, we make sure that we have people who are flying, the crew on that flight, that they're pet lovers as well. We say, who's going to be on our crew today? Because it can change. And sometimes the crew will say, I want that flight. I want that flight. We're like, okay, it's fine. We're happy to have you.
Oh, that's good.
We have a lot of dog lovers.
That's perfect. Another question for you is, you mentioned briefly your routing, but what are the routes? Say if I'm in New York or if I'm in California, can I go? Or tell me your routing for a Hound Air. I'm sorry.
So right now we go from Teterboro, New Jersey, which is just 20 something minutes outside of Manhattan, to Milan, Italy. And we have this route that's specialized with us because we're based in Italy. Our TuscanHound Florence office is based in Italy. That's where we started. That's our home. But we're adding new routes this summer. So we're looking at New York to LA, some other routes around the country. But right now we specialize in the East Coast to Europe, mainly Italy. We're hoping to get new routes in, but because we're very tied to Italy, it's our background, and we're very secure with that route and how to get pets there and back. And most of our clients request that just from our base in Florence. We do from New York to Italy.
And how often do you have these services actually?
So this year we're doing June, July, August, and September. So we have 4 flights this summer, and we keep them small because we're a smaller company. We're self-funded, we're owner-operators, so we manage and oversee everything. Chloe Waller is the other half of Tuscan Hound and Tuscan Hound Air, and so she oversees everything in our Florence office, and I oversee everything at our transport, Tuscan Hound Air. So we really try to focus on that route, but we're getting more routes as we get closer. But because we like to keep an eye on what's going on, we don't want to get too big for our britches. And this is our first. This actually will be our second year going into the aviation industry with the pets. So we're, I think maybe as 2 women from New York, we're a little bit protective of our of
Mhm.
our company, and we want to just, we don't want to get too big for our britches, like I said, and we're not a large corporation, we're small, so we're sticking with what we know right now, but we're expanding this year.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And it's more towards, sounds like more towards the summer months too, which is in some situations is good because, on the airline side, commercial airlines, you get into temperature limit restrictions during the summertime, depending on how they're being transported. So this is an ideal alternative for those that are traveling. And what you're saying, again, luxury doesn't necessarily mean dollar sign. Luxury means just focusing on these pet centric, pet focus, which is great.
Absolutely, and pet safety is very important to us,
Yeah.
and we haven't had a situation where we have had to say no to a pet, but it's some, if we see a situation where, like, this pet maybe is not fit to fly. Of course, you have to, if you're getting a USDA expert certificate, a health certificate, then that pet would have been fit for travel. But we really look out for the animals and what's best for them. We have a veterinarian on every flight, and she's our preferred vet out of Florence, Italy. She's fantastic, and she also trains our staff in Italy at our Florence office every year with emergency response and pet CPR. And so we have her on every flight, just in case. It's like, there's not a doctor normally on your human
Right.
flight, but if
Right.
something happens, you sure hope there is.
I know. I always joke that I think down the line, years down the line, because I've been on some commercial flights where they will over the intercom ask, is there a medical professional on board, and they'll assist the person. I said down the line, years down the line, I would hope that it would be said that, hey, is there a veterinarian on board to assist with this? I mean, because in some situations they really do need assistance. I love that you have your veterinarian there that's training the staff to be able to detect and also respond to situations with pets on board. So that's perfect. And honestly, that's something that ultimately down the line, I think the commercial airlines probably need to look into that too. Just having some bit of training of know-how of what to do in those instances,
Yeah, because you never know. And if, we all have our own pets, and they're animals at the end of the day, and you just never know what could happen. We have a special, even oxygen masks that are for the, for
Mm-hmm.
French bulldogs that are a little
Mm-hmm.
bit wider. And, when you were dealing with these brachycephalic breeds, with English bulldogs, Shih Tzus, as you mentioned, they can't travel in cargo. And also often they can't travel in commercial even.
There's a
So
lot there's a lot of airlines that are actually not US based, but there's a lot of airlines internationally that you might encounter that will not take these brachycephalic breeds or snub-nosed breeds in cabin too, because of these issues that they have. And that's something really, honestly, folks need to understand. I mean, I love it. I look, at my feet is a brachycephalic. I got a French bulldog sitting over here. Those breeds, the brachycephalic breeds, do not do well with air travel because of their facial conformation, and normally they can't breathe well, So you stress them out, they overheat, and now they're in respiratory distress on you. And what are you going to do?
what are you going to do? Exactly. And you need to have someone on board that understands what to do. It couldn't, of course, it has something to do with temperature dependent. You want to keep them cool. But even as an animal like that under stress,
Yeah.
could really have a problem. So what would you do in that situation if you don't have a veterinarian on board, or a veterinary technician,
Right.
or anybody who can help in a situation like that? You know, pets can't always be medicated, or some people don't prefer. You need a professional on board, and that
Mhm.
was so important to us. We always say the more snoring on the plane, the better. Like if
Mhm.
we can just have, 10, Frenchies on board, we're very happy. And we get a lot of animals who are older, or French bulldog, Shih Tzus, animals of this kind, just because the parents, maybe they're allowed to travel on some certain airlines, but they just want the peace of mind, being able to have a professional on board and where
Yeah.
you're pet focused. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I'll, to be honest with you, I'm gonna say what makes you, I'm gonna say that one thing that makes you different from others, but that one top thing there makes you different from other of the private jets that are either charter or have their own jet to go. That's one thing I've noticed that you have that others don't have. But you share, what else makes you different as far as with Tuscan Hound Air?
So like I said, one of the things that makes us different, maybe not with the others, is that again, I would have to really focus on the fact that we're animal focused historically.
Mhm.
This is, as I mentioned before, our staff in Florence is all trained by a veterinarian annually. They're updated annually with those procedures. We work with a lot of clients that we know already, and we're not a large corporation. So what makes us different is not only the luxury aspect for pets, but the fact that we personally deal with the passengers on the plane. So we have been included on Facebook uh, pages for a dog that's traveling by car from Seattle to New York to fly with us. We're really involved in every passenger and animal that is flying with us, and we'll do whatever we can. We don't have to really answer to anyone except for the obviously the important FAA and the DOT. So we don't have other people that are involved in our business that we need to answer to financially, or corporate regulations. So we can make all of the decisions and keep those really personal for each person and pet involved, which we really pride ourselves on. And we hear that a lot from our clients, like, oh, it's so good to talk to a person, or it's so nice that you aren't just trying to sell a ticket, for example. We hear that a lot, and
Mhm.
that's what makes it worth it for us.
Yeah. Look, I'll just share a frustration on just, remember I mentioned earlier that my Wi-Fi messed up for our, our initial meeting with trying to use a different service, podcast provider. Well, my trying to get my AT&T to get everything fixed, you can't even talk to a person anymore.
Mm-mm.
That personalization is gone. So yeah, I can, being able to talk to someone directly, get information, it's huge, and it makes you feel more comfortable, to
And we answer
yeah,
the phone.
yeah. It just makes it difficult. So I wish everything, it seems like automation happened, but automation has taken away that personal connection you want to feel
It is.
reassured,
And when you're dealing with living things, we're dealing with your children,
yeah.
and we always look at it from a point of view of our pets. Would I want my pet to be treated this way? How would I want my pet to travel? Who would I want my pet to travel with? Do I know where my pet is going? Am I aware of the services that they're providing? And who's doing that? And that's just extremely important to us. And thankfully, Chloe and I it's worked in our favor to be on 2 time zones. I'm currently in New York at the moment, and she's in Italy. So we kind of have around the clock the ability to talk to our clients. And if I'm not available, I refer them to Chloe, or someone will call and say, oh, I stopped by your Florence office and they told me that you do transport, you have a transport company coming out of New York. And so I answer all of the emails. I speak to people on the phone. We have frequent flyers. Chloe does the same in Florence. So we're able to get that kind of like one touch hands on that is important to me. Like when I call the phone company, it's kind of a nightmare to have to deal with a automated system. Although I see the efficiency, but with animals, it's a little bit more personal. We want to
Yeah,
keep it that way.
you need a personal touch. So tell me though, what is it like? What from the call to the trip and make it to the final destination? What does that look like for the pet and the pet owner?
So first, somebody will now. It depends where they come from. So they could have We've never done advertising. We just started some social media advertising. Maybe we started 6 months ago. And the reason why, and often we hear this question from people, is why don't we know about you? We haven't heard about TuscanHound Air before. We've heard of these others, but where have you been? And the fact is, we've been around the longest, but we didn't need to advertise because we worked within our own client system from referrals. So all of our business is referral based. So we never thought about advertising. So what will happen is somebody will call that was referred from someone else. They can reach us by email or by phone. And we answer those emails and phone calls personally. And we get to know, kind of narrow down what your goal is. Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? What's your flexibility? And then tell me everything, from puppyhood to now about your pet. Or if it's a kitty cat, we can take bunnies and some tortoises as well, which we've done, which was really fun. And some birds, not many, but some. And we get to know everything there is about your dog. How do you want them to travel? And, if they ask us some other questions of what kind of documentation do we need? Does this apply to us? Some things do and some things don't. So we're always happy to answer those questions, because on the internet, there's so much information that it's overwhelming. Some of it is accurate, but a lot of it isn't. So as we get into a conversation with a passenger, we want to know, where are you in the process, so that we can then take the steps to guide you in the most efficient process possible. Then we will send you a flight brief if you decide to book with us, and it has some really amazing pictures of your dog and some a boarding pass that we do. And it gives you all the information of when you're flying, what to expect on board. You get to choose the meal for your dog on flight. So they have the choice between the Meat Lovers Feast or the Oceanic Feast. They can choose. They can paw which one they want themselves. And of course, your basic information, like what FBO you're going to be at, how to contact us. And then we help also, if you're traveling, for where to stay, that we know where places are dog friendly. And then we greet you at the FBO and guide you through everything there. And you'll see us when you're boarding the plane. I might be on your flight. Chloe might be on your flight, because not only do we have a veterinarian, but we have a lead passenger, just, to keep everything organized and going smoothly, just in case. We're kind of a just in case coverage company. We do not like risk at all.
I like animals. That. I like that. So you're just prepared just in case something happens. I love that.
Just in case, if it happens, absolutely.
Sometimes you never know when you might need something, and you just never know. So being prepared, just think about all the different things. That's perfect.
Absolutely. And we also get quite a few requests for people who, for whatever their reason may be, they aren't able to travel with their pets. So we offer an executive pet travel steward option, and we can fly with their pet if they cannot. And so we have different clients who prefer that, because maybe they're moving and they just want to handle their own move and just kind of have a peace of mind for their pet traveling. Or we have clients who are moving frequently between different homes, and they just hand their pet over to us, and we pick them up wherever they are. They could be in Spain, they could be in England, and then we get them to where they need to be on the jet, and we bring them to you. So you leave your house in Italy, and when you arrive in Los Angeles or wherever you're going, your pet is already there. And the second most important thing for us is to make it easy. Like what is out there. It online, overcomplicated, very stressful, confusing. We want to take that off of your plate. It's just a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Travel, I do it often. I say, and I know you do it often too. It's to the point where I don't really stress over it. I don't get nervous, but I'm sure for those, if I had a pet with me, that a different level of stress on top of me, because I might be comfortable, but now I got to worry about someone else and everything. So it is very stressful for those that don't travel that often. And then you add in some other factors in there. It's stressful. So having someone to take away that burden for you is a big, big help during travel.
Absolutely. And some people, they don't love traveling. If you're going through a commercial airport, there's a lot involved with that. Sometimes, maybe your pet doesn't like to be touched by everybody, and people, of course Of course,
Yeah.
we see an animal and we want to touch it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, and when your pet is oftentimes is very attached to you as its owner, they're more protective in that case because now that pet's traveling with its own pack. So if someone else is doing that for you, then that can alleviate a little bit of the stress. Of course, it's a case by case basis and depends on your dog, but often it's, an animal will have a mission. And if its mission is to travel with you, then that's what it's going to be focused on, you as its travel partner, not the owner. If your pet is traveling with your owner, they interact with you differently. They're emotionally attached to you differently. And we do require to spend at least 24 hours and an overnight with a pet if they don't know us, so that they don't feel like they're being pup napped, because that can be stressful.
It's like, where's my owner?
Where's my owner? Right.
Yeah.
So it's not that we go to the airport, we meet them at the airport and we say, great, see you later. Wish you luck. Right. And the dog's crying. Like, that's the worst setup possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we're picking the dog up somewhere, we make sure that we have accommodation that's very pet friendly with a garden, and we can pick them up at your home or you can drop them off to us. We stay with them for a day and a night minimum. We get to know each other and then we travel together.
That's nice. Let them get acclimated to you, and you're going to be together, and that you care for them, and they're comfortable with that.
We don't like pup napping.
Yeah, it's perfect that you've developed personal relationships with everyone. So that's perfect there. Now, when they're in cabin, do they have to be inside of a carrier? I mean, what are the thoughts there?
No, of course,
crate or any type of crate, soft-sided carrier is what I'm meaning.
Yeah, of course. So no, we always vet the pets anyway. If we don't know your pet prior, which, the more that people are getting to know about us, we don't often know an animal. So we do a video call, and, we want to, of course, see that your idea of a Bichon is not our idea of a German Shepherd. So we want to, just, also we have been speaking about your pet probably for a week or so. And we want to talk to you and see if you have any particular needs, and also just kind of see the pet we've been talking about. It's nice to get to see them. So we do that in the beginning, and then unless you as the owner want your dog in a carrier, no, none of the animals are in carriers or crates. Now, if you have a cat, your cat does have to be in a carrier, but it can be as big as you like. That way they have a little bit more room. Right. And then as we get our passengers booked, because now we know about each pet, we place them very specifically on board. If there's a cat and there's a cat and maybe you're afraid of flying, we'll put you over the wing with your kitty cat. And if there's a dog that doesn't love cats, we're going to put that maybe in the back or in the front. And, and then maybe myself or Chloe will sit nearer the cat, so that, we set things up really specifically and customized so that it's a very little stress, very little stress when traveling.
Okay. No, that's perfect. That is perfect.
But no crates. No, we do not like crates unless you want us to have a crate.
That's perfect. Wow.
Some dogs like a crate. Just depends on the animal.
I mean, some do, just because, again, it all depends on the dogs, or how they are and how they're acclimated to traveling. I mean, every animal is different, so you can't gauge it on this one's fine and it should be perfectly fine. Your pet could be totally different in that environment. So that's one thing.
Exactly.
Folks have to consider that whenever you're traveling with your pet, you can't just assume that it's going, because you've seen it and it seems okay for that dog or cat, that my dog's going to behave the same way, because it would be a shocker to you that they behave differently. So
absolutely. And we know plenty of dogs who enjoy a crate. They go to a crate at night. And even with our boarding that we offer in Florence, we say we don't use cages at all, and unless you request them. And so sometimes we do get a dog where the parents say, he really loves his crate at night. He feels comfortable in there. No problem. You want to go in the crate at night, we'll do whatever you ask us to do. Down to one of our long-term pets, we have to put chamomile little pads on his eyes at night because he likes it. We will do what you ask us to do.
I like it.
It doesn't matter.
Really, because he likes it. Now, that's good.
Apparently the dog, and I can vouch for that. The dog does like it. It's a King Cavalier Spaniel, and he loves his nightly warm chamomile tea eye patches.
Hey,
no problem.
I'm sure it takes away the bloating and everything, and just relaxes and goes off to sleep. So that's, hey, But you know what? Again, it's pet centric, whatever, to make the pet happy and comfortable. That's what it should be about, these trips. I just worry a lot of times when people travel with their pets. They, to me, definitely not your clientele, but I've seen it where people almost treat their pets like they're a tag along, that they're coming along. They say they love them, but they're not doing anything to really prepare that pet for air travel. And that's kind of why I do a lot of things that I do. That's why I give out information that's pet centric, to remind them that travel is not just logistics. It's not you getting a ticket and going. It's really focusing on that pet, making sure they're ready and prepared for it. They're medically fit to fly. They're acclimated if they have to be in a crate. Well, if they have to be in a crate, go to by cargo or in a soft-sided carrier in cabin, they still have to be acclimated and comfortable there. So again, that's why I do what I do as far as pet centric, because I think for the majority of the general public don't really think of that issue, don't think about their pet, even though I know they love them, but they're not thinking that way. So it's good that you're folks definitely focusing on the pets first, really providing.
And your site is great also because, as I mentioned to you before when we first spoke many months ago, I said, I'm so glad I came across your site because the information here is accurate. And accurate information makes it so much easier for the general public to understand what they need and what they don't need. And overall, at the end, that's what's better for the pet. I think a lot of people are just uninformed.
Yes.
And understandably so, because the amount of information that's available is overwhelming and can be often inaccurate. So I would recommend anybody who's getting prepared for travel to definitely look at your site, because it was one of the things I was really impressed by was the accuracy of the information. And it relieves us folks who work in travel as well with animals, like, okay, now we can refer if they have additional questions, or maybe we don't fly somewhere, resources. And things change. So maybe there are just some new countries now where the CDC coming into the United States, the rules have changed with the CDC in 2026. So you wouldn't know that as an average person who's traveling. Right. So you can also, it's very disappointing if you go to the ticket counter and you think that you have everything you need. And as we call them, the gatekeeper, the person at the ticket counter says, no, this isn't correct. Right. You can't get on. And then what do you do with your pet? And that's stressful, and not necessarily the person's fault. They just thought they knew.
Yeah. There needs to be more education. And thank you for mentioning When Pets Fly for that, because I've been working really hard to just ensure that information is out. And what people don't understand is that as far as these regulations, again, the airline didn't make this regulation. As you mentioned, coming to the country, CDC regulates the importation of animals coming here or the return of dogs coming to the country. CDC is the gatekeeper, is the regulatory authority. The airline is supposed to enforce these regulations. So don't necessarily say you get mad at the airline, whatever. You do need to know the requirements for transporting a pet. And there's going to be your regulatory requirement for that destination country or state, because in the U.S., going to Hawaii is different if I was, say, traveling from New York to Georgia. If I go to New York to Hawaii, there's more specific things they have to make sure you meet requirements for there too. But you've got to research that first, and then the airline will have their policies in place for the safety of the animal during transport. So just realize it is regulated, and it's important for compliance to keep your pet safe during transport. And that's, to me, that education going out, that's what's totally missing. And all the things you can do to prepare, totally missing. And that's what I've been doing with When Pets Fly, to just really try to share that information to just ensure pets get to their destination safely. And
especially for longer flights, there's a pet, it's hard. Each pet is different, like you were saying, but if you may think you have all the correct information, but it helps to be able to talk to someone to clear something up based on your specific destination. Now, if you're going to Japan, I could help you with some things, but we don't fly to Japan. So I would, refer that person to your site, or maybe to someone else, their veterinarian in their country, if they're coming or going from Japan. These are different things, but they're very, very specific. And like we were saying, they change a lot. And there is a reason for that. You've got to be up to date with certain just rabies vaccines. Yeah. And then titer tests are required, and those titer tests change. The requirements on those change. Yeah. I think we just had some changes for 2026 on who requires them and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a moving
That
regulation.
documentation and compliance. So what do you do as far as I know it's a challenge, but what do you do to help keep your documentation in order on your side?
So we start at the kind of base of what you already have. So when someone calls me, I say, "Tell me what you already have for your pet. Are they up to date on their rabies vaccine?" And they say, "Oh yeah, we have a rabies vaccine from 2 years ago." Okay, was it a 3-year or a 1-year vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
If it was a 1-year, we need to get a new one. And
Mm-hmm.
if it was a 3-year, then we're okay, but we probably need a booster if we're going to be going into Europe. So we just start with the basics of where they are, and then we go from there to see what they might need, and then guide them on what we can help them do and what they might need to do themselves. So if you're gonna, I always use Italy as an example because that's where we mostly fly to. So if you're coming from California, we are in California to be able to help you with that international export health certificate from the USDA. But we have a list of veterinarians that we can
Mm-hmm.
offer you that you can go to. And if you need on help on the phone from us to speak with the veterinarian, we can help you do that. You just let us know what time you're going to be there, and we'll get on the phone with the vet and say this is such and such if you need assistance. So it isn't as overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a simple thing, the USDA International Export Health Certificate, but even the name is long. For people, it's like, what is this? I have to have this. Where do I get it? How much does it cost? And, that can vary from veterinarian to veterinarian. So we get your basic information, and then we take that information and see what path we need to go down for your travel, and guide you with whatever you need. And of course, this is different for dogs, cats, destination and arrival. If you're traveling with a bird or a tortoise, for example, you have CITES forms, so you have different forms, but we can help you with that. It's always good to have a conversation to see where you're starting, and then we can go from there.
Yeah.
But we'll get you there.
Yeah, no, that's good. Do you see any kind of mistakes that maybe pet owners come with you, or what they're lacking as far as getting prepared for their trips, as far as documentation wise? What's the most common thing they're lacking?
I do, and it's understandable because, again, it is confusing, and I never blame passengers or clients for this because it's the Wild West on the internet when it comes to pet information.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we'll see what someone thinks is an export certificate. They'll get that confused with a fit to fly health letter. And so we know these are two very different things. So a fit to fly letter of health is just from, as you know, from a private veterinarian saying that your animal is just that, fit to fly. But that won't only allow you to fly depending on where you're going. If you're going to Europe, you also need a USDA International Export Health Certificate.
Right.
And that is essentially, saying that your pet is, yes, fit to fly, but that's an official document that says, I see no medical issues with your pet. You don't have any major issues, no fleas, no ticks, rabies is up to date. And we officially approve this animal for travel to Europe.
Yeah.
So we see those two different things, and it's understandable because it can get confusing, but that's probably the most common.
But you know what? The thing I've noticed too on a lot of these Facebook groups and stuff they have now for pet travel, there's a lot of misinformation going that way too. But they'll say something as, they're wondering why can't just a veterinary hospital make up their own health certificates and use those? And just as you said, a medical fitness supply will be almost similar to that. It's just on, say, veterinary letterhead, and they're describing something about the pet, their fitness supply. That can never be used. You have to use a standard form for that destination country. And say if I'm going to Italy or France or wherever over in Europe, each country will have their own specific export certificate, really, to leave the U.S. And where you're going to find this information is the USDA Pet Travel website that have all the information you need right there. And again, it's good from U.S. leaving to the country, but unfortunately for a lot of those that are outside of the United States, I'm not sure if these countries have an established system with all that together, like USDA does, with all that information, because they get frequent updates from different countries, the changes and the requirements. They keep that in this one central format where you can find it, basically. So, but
and that can be absolutely, and that can be confusing when you have someone who goes to that country and they stay a certain amount of time, and they need a health certificate coming back. They need an
Right,
expert certificate coming back into the country.
right.
So that can be confusing. And, there's, if you don't speak the language of the country that you're going to, and you look on the internet,
Right.
you say, okay, this is what I need. And you get to the ticket counter and you don't get on the plane.
Well,
That is harmful to the
yeah.
parent and the pet.
Definite. One thing I mentioned earlier, remember I said CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's your regulatory authority getting into the United States. So if you're coming straight, say coming to New York, make sure you meet CDC's dog importation or their importation regulations, period. That's going to be your where you're going to have to search and find that information. So then say if you're going to Hawaii, which is going to be more stringent, make sure you meet the requirements of CDC and Hawaii, because their requirements are a little bit different. But again, that's not something that regular people know that you need to do to come to the country. And yeah, we need to work on it as a country. We need to work on really sharing this information and make it more common knowledge. If I'm traveling, this is where I need to do to find this information. And you know what it stems back to, in my mind, it stems back to people not realizing their pets are, well, number one, they're regulated. They're animals. You can't just take your dog, put it in your purse, and get on a flight to go somewhere. And trust me, people
still an animal.
Look done it and go to Europe. You can't do that. It's an animal. And much as I love animals, I do recognize that they can transport diseases. And there's diseases that they have that other countries may not have. And now they're a threat to their country, especially for rabies. You go from the U.S., that's we don't have canine variant rabies, but we do have rabies. You go to a country like Australia that's rabies free, that's an issue. Okay, you're bringing in something that potentially can impact my whole economic agricultural system and everyone. No, that's a public health threat. So people need to realize your pets, much as we love them, can harbor diseases that can be a threat to the general public and other animals around them.
Absolutely. And although, you may have the cutest Yorkshire Terrier or Maltipoo in the world, it is an animal at the end of the day. And we know that in the back of our minds, we understand it's still an animal, as much as we know there are beloved pets and part of the family, still an animal. Animals bite, animals carry diseases, animals do things that animals do, which isn't always the nicest thing, but they're at the end of the day, they're animals. So, it's good to keep that in mind. And it's important because, if you start to, let's just say you don't follow the regulations, that changes it for everybody else. If that particular country starts to see, okay, we've had a little bit of an influx of people who don't have the correct rabies information, they're going to change that regulation for everybody else who's traveling, which can make it hard. Getting into England, we travel a lot to England from Europe, whether we're driving, because we also do ground transport, not in cages. We transport them as a human would. So regular harness with a seat belt. We stop every few hours and we go to, we stop at hotels. They travel as humans travel. So we do a lot of transport to the UK. And that's one of the most stringent countries to get into. And I always tell people, if they decide not to use us and they go on their own, I'd say, please, if you're not, I wish you the happiest travel with you and your pet. That's all that matters. Be careful with the UK. They are strict. You've got to have all of your information in order, especially with that rabies vaccine. And a lot of people don't know as well, getting into the UK, if your rabies vaccine was given before the microchip was inserted, you can't get into the UK. They're going to send you away. Say bye.
And it was explained to me that the microchip, in a sense, registers your pet. It's the registration for your pet and make sure, I guess, it's valid. And then after that, you either microchip first, and then you give the rabies vaccination on the same day or after that. But you can't rabies, microchip, and think everything's going to go, because no, it's at least what I was told, that the pet is not really registered or recognized until the microchip is done. So
exactly. And sometimes that makes a difference down to the 24 hours. We had a client who was coming in, and it was a 24-hour difference from Europe, and they wouldn't let him in. So they had to send him, and we're familiar with that system. We have a vet in France that we use, it's like 2 hours. And we've had to go to that vet in France. One time the website for the UK wasn't updated. And I said, well, your website isn't updated. He said, I know, I'm sorry. I said, oh, okay. So we had to go get a passport from France. But this is, we're familiar with this. So it was
Mhm.
something that we can do without an issue or worry and update our clients. But if you're traveling on your own and you don't know about the microchip, having to be inserted prior to the rabies, or you get there and the website wasn't updated, what are you going to do? Although as polite and lovely as they are right there at Calais, to go from Calais into the UK, they're not obligated to really help you figure out the system,
Mhm.
so you get kind of stuck, and that can be tough. It's, again, one of those things that's not always accurate online, but yeah, getting your documentation checked, and especially I would say the rabies is at the highest, number one for
Yeah.
documentation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Again, rabies is not something to play with. I mean, it is
No.
a public, it's a disease we can all get, and it's fatal. So it's very important. So
Well, like you work at the CDC, you work for the CDC, and in
yeah.
our initial conversation, we discovered that I also, together, I also used to work for the CDC
Mhm.
and research with animals in the research department. So I am very, wise to
Mhm.
diseases with animals.
Yeah.
We worked with everything from, macaques to rodents, mice, rats, anthrax, malaria. Animals carry disease, everybody.
Yes.
Gotta be careful.
Newsflash. I don't.
Newsflash,
Yeah. Newsflash.
please.
Yeah. They do, and there's some diseases that if we get it, it can be fatal. So just recognize that the importance of the rabies vaccination is very important. But going back to again, because I've had a veterinarian say to me before, what difference does it make when whatever? Again, the difference that it makes as far as that's what the country requires. So you may not like or may not think it makes sense to you that it doesn't matter as long as the rabies vaccination is given, as long as they are microchipped and the order doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You don't have to like it, but you have to comply with the regulations for that destination country. And if they say the microchip is first, then the rabies vaccine the same day or after, that is the regulation that you have to follow. And getting folks to understand that. And even coming back into the United States now, they're making it where they have to be microchipped first and then the rabies vaccination. I don't think it's totally clear, or they haven't broadcasted it as much as they should, but even coming to the country, that also there's an ordering system with that too, which is new for us because in the US, again, even microchipping it's been around, but microchipping is not like the standard thing we normally do for pets. It's not standard. I think
We
in other
just
countries it's more of a standard.
it is, and it has to be the ISO, the 13 digit,
Yes, yes,
or is
yes,
it
yes. Yep.
so it has to be internationally recognized by
Yep.
that number. I think
Right.
very few countries have the numbers that are not in ISO, so that's always something to check.
Mm-hmm.
But we just flew commercial just last week, and with a smaller pet, and they didn't care about the microchip number. They
Mm-hmm.
only wanted to see the rabies vaccine. So the reason I say that is because, again, it depends on the word that we use is your gatekeeper. Who is your gatekeeper? Is it the
Right.
country? Is it the person at the ticket counter? Who is checking, and how much do they matter? And that's really important to check, because once you're through the initial part one, you're good to go for the rest of
Mhm.
it, most likely. But if you can't get past your first person, you're going to have a problem. So make sure that you check who your gatekeeper is, and that can often
I
be the arrival country or your departure country, and the government website for that is often the best, or
Right.
your site.
You know the interesting thing also that they say on there's a lot of these Facebook groups is you're saying the gatekeeper. Sometimes the gatekeeper could be, say, your agent when you go check in at the airport. The sad thing about it is one agent might be lax, another one might be more stringent to follow the airline policies, which is really awful because people are looking for that little loophole to get through the door, and they almost make it seem like that's the norm, but that's not the norm. What everyone should be trying to do more than anything is follow what the airline says, and then there's going to be no problems moving forward. Because imagine someone gives you a loophole to get to your destination, and when you turn around to come back and the person says no because they're following the policies for the airline. Isn't that upsetting?
Very.
So don't look for loopholes. Don't look for a shortcut. Don't bank your trip on a loophole or someone giving you a little break, because when that other person comes in and follows the policy as it should be followed, and then now denies you, now you're upset, now you're frustrated, now you don't understand, now it's not fair. Why don't you just comply with what the airline says to do?
Exactly. And shifts change, right? So you're not going to have that same person.
But I mean, I would say I feel bad for. I mean, airlines should have consistency across the board. I mean, there should be no way, no bending rules or what have you. Honestly, the way I feel about it. But reality is, unfortunately, that's what's happening. But as a pet owner traveling, and when you have your pet and you got to worry about their welfare and all the things, the stress, why don't you just comply? And you won't have to worry about if it makes it or not,
And you have a point of reference because you can look back at the website that is listed by that airline and say, this is what you require right here. I have all of this.
Right.
May I speak to someone else about this? Because if it's on their website, you have something to battle with a little bit. If it's not, you can't just say this. Well, last time I flew on your airline, you allowed me to do that. And that's, we had a client who had a bit of a trouble. She got a letter from her doctor just saying that she was allowed to fly with her dog for medical reasons. And that's just a letter. She could have brought a bill from her Wi-Fi company. It was the equivalent of that. And whoever let her on the flight coming into Europe made a mistake. So by letting her on, I mean, it was just a letter from her doctor. And so she had called us from the airport in Milan and said, I can't get on this flight. They aren't accepting this documentation. So I explained to her why they wouldn't accept this letter. And we ended up having to pick up the dog, and then we transported the dog to her out on the West Coast. But that, they will tell you no if you don't have the correct documentation. And you have to check, because there are a lot of people out there who will say, this is right, here's what you have to do, just pay us and you can fly with this. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just giving you, this is like having your grandmother's lawn keeper's birth certificate. There's no validity there. And you have to check. Please don't travel with that piece of documentation.
Research. You have to really research and do it the correct way. Don't follow. And really, as you said, the airline's website should have all the correct information that you need to follow. Don't follow Facebook. Don't follow what someone said they use. Don't really go to the source and follow and comply what they say to do to travel with your pet. Whatever is needed, do that. And then you won't have any discrepancies. And like you said, print it out just in case. Bring it with you. Hey, this is what it says here. I'm complying with all this here. That's the best way to do it. But to rely on social media, what you see pictures of, all these other things, you can't guarantee those. I mean, again.
And that's, this is interesting too. Social media is so inaccurate that we were getting, we got an influx of people using our services because they were misled by this marketing campaign, I'll call it, from Italian Airlines saying that they were going to allow large pets in cabin. And we know pilots from ITA Airways and other airlines that are coming out of Italy, and they said, I don't know what this is, but we are not doing this. And so you cannot take a dog of a large size in the cabin of a plane in Europe. You just cannot. You can't. Even you just can't. So please be careful, everybody. That is not true. They allowed one dog, I think was 10 pounds on ITA, that they just did a test with, and they brought it from one city in Italy to another city in Italy. But that is it. There is no allowance for an animal of a large size to go in the cabin of the plane under any circumstance right now with these Italian airlines. Please, I beg you, call the airline or see us. Come to visit us. We can get you there, no problem whatsoever, and we can guarantee your dog will get on the flight. But that was hurtful to us. I'll use the word hurtful because we had so many hopeful parents, so many.
Oh, whenever you hear that there's a change to in-cabin transport, everyone is like, "Yay, we're going to do that." And I've had someone ask me a couple weeks back saying, "Do I think that they're going to change as far as within Delta? Or they're going to start allowing more pets come in cabin?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know how the future, and I can't say. All I know is that what I try to tell folks as far as commercial airlines is that the focus on a lot of things they do is on people. I mean, they were intended for people to be transported. And even though they say pet friendly, the term pet friendly, I think that's the worst term to use for air travel. To me, pet friendly is a hospitality term. It should not be related to to air travel, period. Because
I agree.
People in cabins, it's public safety, it's FAA. It's all these things they have to learn to ensure the people are safe in cabin. Adding pets in there should be just an accommodation. It's an accommodation. And they may accommodate so many animals. Of course, service animals are accommodated, but as far as the number of pets in cabins you travel near, there's going to be a limit, because think about what they're trying to do. And God forbid, think about if something happens during transport. So just be aware, it was not meant to be, it wasn't a system built for, say, traveling a lot of pets in cabin and they're in your seat. It wasn't built that way.
Exactly.
In the future, I don't know if it will change in the future, but just understand what it is and try to see how pets can be accommodated in that situation. And again, it's not pet friendly where, oh, they can come. No, it really isn't, because there's a lot of rules and regulations. There are things you have to consider when you bring in a lot of pets in there. So just understand the whole system, why it was developed, and then maybe consider how we can accommodate pets basically for our travels. So I don't know.
And there is a difference, and I understand that cost is often an issue. I absolutely do. If the people who are in my industry, which is the being able to fly pets and jets, we could do it for less money, we would. But we just aren't there yet. So we're trying to do a lot of things that make it more affordable for people. We're starting this year where we'll have one pet for adoption, whether it comes from Italy or Europe, adopted into the United States, or from the United States over to Italy, or a bordering country, and we'll fly that pet for free. So we're very excited about that. And then we're starting with our veterinary partners in the fall, where if your pet needs medical services, we will organize all of that for you. And we have surgeons there in Italy. We have regular veterinarians. We've got veterinary technicians. I don't want to say regular veterinarians, but like your general health vets. And it's for a much less cost than you'd be able to do it in the States. And the way that came up for us was, it was so heartbreaking to be in the United States and see that people were, and this was a true story, on the phone to sell their truck to get their cat a surgery they needed. And that was hard for us. Yeah. So we said, let's start to do this. So we try to do as much as we can to kind of make up for this cost that we're forced to have just for operational costs. But again, going back to commercial versus what we do, pet friendly, you're right, is a term that's used for hospitality. If you go with somebody who is pet focused, meaning that's their base, then it's just going to be an easier ride for you all the way around. Because, if you think about at the end, not having the correct documentation costs you money. Delays cost you money. All of that costs you money. So at the end of the day, you could be separated from, I'm not trying to terrify anybody. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's a possibility.
All those possibilities there. And then ultimately think about all those delays impacting their pet in the process too. Think about that.
Because you can't eat for a certain amount of time. If you have to give them water, they're out of their normal environment. If you go with someone, who has all of that experience and it's already planned out based on animals, it's just, it's going to be less expensive than you think it is in the long run, and you have a peace of mind.
Yes.
And the jets are super nice. That's really nice. And I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but you fly higher than commercial when you're in a jet. So there's not a lot of turbulence, and it's really comfortable. And it's not for, you don't have to be a millionaire to fly these jets. You just have to kind of move it. If you're not somebody who would normally spend that amount of money to travel, if you fly business class, it's the same. It's the same amount of money. So do look at the costs if you're traveling with a pet and see if it really pans out to be that much more expensive for you. And then you have a peace of mind of traveling with your pet.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Marianne, we hit a lot today.
It's always good to talk to you.
I love it. We had a great conversation, and I'm sorry this is really done here, but I wanted to make sure we shared. Oh gosh, TuscanHound Air, you guys are on, and let me put it maybe a little bit longer. TuscanHound Air, you've got a website, you are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Is there anything else you want to share before we go, or any advice for pet owners planning on traveling and want to use your service? Anything further you want to share?
Absolutely. Just ask. Call.
Mhm.
If you think that there's something that say, oh, I don't know if we can do that, just ask us. We can probably do it for you. And if we can't, then we'll help you try to get maybe somebody who can, because our focus at the end of the day is to have these animals travel safely. So if you just you're thinking about traveling with us and you're like, oh, well, maybe I can't take my tortoises. I'm really trying to get my tortoises over.
Mhm.
Call us. We can get your tortoises over. We may, we did one last year. We had to go through Spain, but we got them into Germany legally,
Mhm.
right channels, but we'll find us a legal and appropriate solution for what you need. We will try our best.
You know what? Before you go, I want to share. I have a good friend who, thank goodness, her plans changed. But I had a good friend that was trying to move to Milan, I believe it was, from Baltimore, Maryland area, and she was having an extremely difficult time getting. Her daughter has a type of lizard, but a little pet lizard. She went through so much, and I think they're trying to find someone that would transport her, which airlines would, which wouldn't. And she wound up finding I guess a reptile transport service. They were going to charge her something like $2,500 just to transport her reptile. And she was like, my goodness, but unfortunately for her, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Everything didn't pan out as she wanted to change jobs to move to Milan. So it didn't work, but she would have to pay $2,500 to do that. But guess what? Now that I know you, I know there was a potential opportunity there where it wouldn't have been as bad. But
Yeah, we do. We try to do what we can.
Yeah.
We understand it's a little lizard. We got it.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to drive to Rome or meet us in Florence
Yeah.
or something. But we'll help. We'll try to help as much as we can, and we're solution based. That's the most important for pets. Like, we look for a solution. Our last thing that we want to do is complicate anything for people traveling with pets.
Well, gosh, thank you so much, Marianne.
Thank you.
So happy you joined me today and to share more about TuscanHound Air and everything. So thank you so much. Any other final words before we go?
That's it. We look forward to hearing from you. And again, give us a call and we'll try to get you up in the air with your pet and enjoying yourself and get you to your destination safely and feeling great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for watching us. We'll be back, I believe, next week with another When Pets Fly podcast. So see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.